Eugenics gone awry.
Darwinism, as described in Charles Darwin's book, The Descent of Man, expressed the need to eliminate the black people of the world, calling them savages who will be exterminated by the civilized races, thus turning the concepts of civil and savage completely on their heads.
Charles Darwin, from The Descent of Man. At some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. At the same time, the anthropomorphous apes, as Professor Schaffhausen has remarked, will no doubt be exterminated. The break between man and his nearest allies will then be wider, for it will intervene between man in a more civilized state, as we may hope, even than the Caucasian, and some ape as low as a baboon, instead of as now between the Negro or Australian and the gorilla.
147 years later.
Baby bust. New report finds we're having fewer and fewer babies. Global fertility is rapidly declining according to a new study on health trends around the world. Published by The Lancet, the report has found several countries are not delivering enough babies to maintain their population numbers, meaning they are now facing a baby bust. If the trend continues, many countries could see the diversity in their population change significantly in that they would have more grandparents than children, which would result in profound societal changes. The authors looked at the number of babies women across the globe are likely to deliver in their lifetimes. This is called the total fertility rate. According to their findings in 2017, 91 countries had rates lower than 2 children per woman and were not maintaining their current population size, while 104 nations were seeing population increases due to their high fertility rates. The lowest rate was in Cyprus, where, on average, a woman would give birth to 1 child throughout her life, as opposed to the highest, in Niger, with a total fertility rate of 7 children. The study assessed data from the 1950s to 2017, and the findings are being described as a huge surprise. On average, women in the 1950s were likely to have 4.7 children, however in 2017 that almost halved to 2.4. These statistics represent both a baby boom for some nations and a baby bust for others, said Dr. Christopher Murray, director of the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington, USA. The lower rates of women's fertility clearly reflect not only access to and availability of reproductive health services, but also many women choosing to delay or forego giving birth, as well as having more opportunities for education and employment. Other findings. The study addresses a number of areas, focusing on the impact of disease on society. It has found lower back pain, headache disorders, and depressive disorders were the 3 leading causes of disability globally in 2017, while diabetes has emerged as the 4th leading cause of disability globally. In 2017, there were 245.9 million new cases of low back pain, 995.4 million new cases of headache disorders, 258.2 million new cases of depressive disorders, and 22.9 million new cases of diabetes. The Global Burden of Disease Study, GBD, is the only annual, comprehensive, peer-reviewed assessment of global trends in health, and is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Now let's take a look and see what countries, according to the CIA's webpage on the countries throughout the world that has the highest growing populations. Let's see who exactly those countries are. Is it Charles Darwin's favorite race? At the top of the list we have South Sudan. At the second is Niger. Third, Angola. Fourth, Benin. Fifth, Equatorial Guinea. Sixth, Uganda. Seventh, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Eighth, Chad. Ninth, Mali. 10th, Zambia. And the list goes on. So within the top 23 countries throughout the world that has the highest growing population rate, they're all black. So who exactly is God favoring if he's playing favorites in regards to race? It doesn't look like it will be Charles Darwin's race.
He who hates disguises it with his lips, and lays up deceit within himself. When he speaks kindly, do not believe him, for there are 7 abominations in his heart. Though his hatred is covered by deceit, his wickedness will be revealed before the assembly.
Now let's hear what Bill Gates have to say on one of the things that can help decrease the world's population.
This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to 0. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to 0. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to 0. That's back from high school algebra, but let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
And according to Bill and Melinda Gates, who should get the new vaccines first?
The last thing you want is a bidding war between countries for this vaccine. You know, we know there are 60 million healthcare workers around the world who are keeping everybody safe. They deserve to get this vaccine first. And from there, you want to do tiering in various countries to make sure your most vulnerable populations get it. In our country, that would be Blacks and Native Americans, people with underlying health conditions, and the elderly.
Whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and he who rolls a stone will have it roll back on him. A lying tongue hates those who are crushed by it, and a flattering mouth works ruin.
Now we see what was the result of all that genocide talk that's been going on for over 100 years. This is what it's led to. The ones who thought they were better than everyone and had the right to be here and even had the right to wipe other people off the face of the earth, they're the ones facing extinction. So, in the end, was white supremacy really worth it? After practicing anti-black racism for hundreds of years, you had to know it would eventually catch up to you. Furthermore, so many of the people that you mark for extinction, too many of them are God's chosen people, the Israelites. There's no way God will let them just get wiped out so that you can use the world as your own private country club. You bit off more than you can chew with that one. There's no way that it could possibly be pulled off like that. God's covenant with Israel is sealed in the heavens. You couldn't wipe them off the face of the earth no more than you can stop the sun, moon, and stars from shining. And because of the hatred of your people, their anti-black racism, hating on the very image of God, It looks like you've gotten on God's nerves because now He's decreasing the power of your people by making them infertile, causing their sperm count to be low. And for the few that your people does have, they don't even want to swim. You literally have struggle sperm in your race. So in the race war that you've been launching against black people throughout the world, you're losing the race. And we didn't even have to lay a finger on you. You offended God Himself. But should that really be a surprise at all? What you're doing wasn't exactly civil. It was indeed savage. So there should be no surprise that your own plans have been turned against you. So you're going to have to take this up with God Himself.